for the inhumane treatment inflicted upon overseas Filipino worker Pahima Alagasi Palakasi, who apparently suffered second-degree burns when her employer's mother doused boiling water on her, introduced by Senator Legarda.
Foreign Relations, Labor, Employment, and Human Resource Development.
Committee report number 32, prepared and submitted by the Committee on Public Information and Mass Media on Senate number 2239, with Senators Ramon Bongrevilla Jr., Legarda, and Grace Poe as authors thereof, entitled An Act Requiring All Franchise Holders or Operators of Television Stations and Producers of Television Programs to broadcast or present their programs with closed captions option and for other purposes, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 271, 349, and 1656, taking into consideration House number 925, sponsor Senator Grace Poe.
Calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2211 under Committee Report number 25. This is the Philippine Lemon Law of 2014, and the parliamentary status is that we are starting the period of interpellations, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of Senate Bill number 2211 under Committee Report number 25 is in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor, the chairman of the Committee on Trade, Senator Bam Aquino.
Senator Aquino is recognized.
To interpolate, I move that we recognize the Majority Leader, Senator Alan Cayetano.
Senator Cayetano is recognized.
Mr. President, will the sponsor yield to a few clarificatory questions?
Of course, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. President, on the onset, I'm very supportive of the Lemon Law. We know how important this is. We know how long this has been lingering in the legislature. So I thank the chairman of the Committee on Trade for prioritizing this. And I think if we get it done soon, it'll be in record time. But allow me to have a short discussion with you about this law and also about the bigger principle of consumer rights, with your permission, Mr. President.
Surely, Mr. President.
And I know that the chairman is also one of the champions for consumer rights aside from entrepreneurism, and that is why he wanted the Committee on Trade. No? Can you tell us first why we need a lemon law? I mean, if we look at the numbers, 145 complaints, 64 for mediation, 4 for arbitration, 34 still in process, 23 dismissed, 8 still under arbitration, 12 to the Consumer Welfare Desk. That's 145 cars out of 213,000 sold in 2013. If you look at the numbers, it doesn't seem so glaring, no, that you need such a law, but we know we do. Would the chairman elaborate a little bit on the necessity of the law and what the law is all about?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Having a lemon law is actually a practice by a number of countries, Mr. President, and specifically, it refers to when you purchase a vehicle that is substandard. Hence, it's called a lemon. No? In fact, Mr. President, countries like the U.S. are known for very strong consumer protection and consumer rights. And that's exactly what we want to push for in this law. The Philippine Lemon Law, in short, Mr. President, allows a consumer to be able to get an equivalent vehicle or their money back, a refund, if after a given period of time, they're able to, or they experience the same defect again and again. And specifically in the law, Mr. President, it says 4 times. So if I purchased a brand new vehicle, napansin ko mayroong problema, dinala ko sa casa, naayos, then in a week's time, it's still there, pinaayos ko, in a week's time, it's still there, after the 4th time, I can actually get an equivalent vehicle already or my money back. Of course, Mr. President, this will hopefully empower our countrymen and let them understand that they do have rights as consumers, especially when it comes to vehicles, which is such a big purchase. No? For smaller items, Mr. President, we were talking about it on the side, that there are already ways to return products. But of course, when it comes to a vehicle, which is very expensive, which of course is a complicated and a complex machine, there may be a need to further support our consumer rights, no, with regard to the purchase of new vehicles. So basically, Mr. President, this version has been in the works long before I've become a senator. And this has always been almost there. No? Lagi po siyang almost passed. And I'd just also like to say, Mr. President, that this is actually built up by a multisectoral group of consumer rights advocates, the auto industry itself, DTI, and a number of other groups are very supportive of this bill. And they're hoping that by pushing for this bill, they can actually support our countrymen in terms of their rights when buying new vehicles.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you emphasized right away that it is a big purchase and that when we go to the stores for other items, there's a mechanism, whether it's a market mechanism or it's a mechanism provided by law to return things. No? For example, if I buy a cell phone and kahit anong gawin ko, pasoli-soli, sira, there are already mechanisms in place na isole at palitan, and we'll go to that later. But pagdating sa sasakyan, sa vehicles, it's a different matter. And studies would show na dalawa talagang pinag-iipunan ng Pilipino. Pangatlo yung cellphone, no? But yung dalawa, bahay at saka kotse o sasakyan. No? And the difference between yung bahay at yung sasakyan and other items, yung other items, hindi lang mas mababa yung price, mismong yung store mapapahiya sila, di ba? Pagka sinoli mo, sira yung binenta, Facebook mo, o Twitter mo, ano ba itong tindahan na to? Nakatatlong cellphone na ako, sira. So it's just easier for them, even without a law, market forces na isole, di ba? Pero pagka bumibili ka ng bahay, halimbawa sa subdivision, or bumibili ka ng kotse, parang aside from the fact that it's so hard to prove that it's a lemon rather than may sira lang dito, no? Ang hirap din na magsole or to get your money back because first of all, you don't have any konti choice mo eh. Ilan lang ang car makers, for example, no? A dozen siguro. Samantalang halimbawa sa cellphones, what? You'll have a couple, maybe 100,000 retail stores all around the country. So yung competition helps, no? So my point, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, is that I agree with the sponsor. One, that it is a big purchase. And although the number seems small, no? 145 out of 213,000, lahat ng bumibili ng kotse, gusto ng peace of mind na pag lemon yung binili niya, may mekanismo na isole. Kasi napakahirap nang wala kang sasakyan. Napakahirap na nag-ipon ka ng napakatagal, may sasakyan ka, pabalik-balik, pagpipilitan ng manufacturer na, hindi, malit na sira lang yan. Pero alam mo na lemon yung nakuha mo. No?
Yes, Mr. President. I just remembered it right now. No? I wasn't able to answer this earlier. But I think, Mr. President, if I'm not mistaken, for most purchases, there is an implied warranty in the receipt. So kahit walang nakalagay na meron kang warranty, there is an implied warranty of 60 days, no, if I'm not mistaken. Which means, Mr. President, anything that you buy, whether it's a smaller item or a larger, more expensive item, because of the transaction, there's an implicit receipt. No? Some stores will say 6 months warranty or 1 year warranty. That then, Mr. President, goes beyond what is implied by the law. This lemon law, actually, Mr. President, extends that warranty period even more. Because the warranty period, Mr. President, is 12 months or 20,000 kilometers, whichever comes first. So without that provision, then cars, in effect, would fall under the regular implied warranty or maybe even a store warranty, which might be less than 12 months or 20,000 kilometers. So in effect, Mr. President, the lemon law does give that ample time for our consumers to find out if the purchase that they had does have a defect or does have a recurring defect which needs to be replaced.
Before I go to my other examples, no, just to stick to the law para on the record then, no, anong mga klase or what kind of motor vehicles are included in this act?
Okay. Mr. President, this is actually defined, no?
So brand new po yung mga kasama po dito, no? Meaning, this will not change the law na kapag nasa used car ka bumili at sinabi na nung may-ari na buy it as it is or di ba
This doesn't
na
cover that, Mr. President.
and si Russia kasi in those cases naman may warning na sa publiko na ito'y second hand at minsan sinasabi na you buy it as it is, di ba? So kailangan testingin mo.
Yes.
Pero pag bumili ka ng brand new, ina-assume mo wala kang kailangan testingin doon. Lahat 'yon bago at ayos, di ba?
That's right, Mr. President. And in Section 3, letter M, no, if I may read from the bill itself, motor vehicle refers to any self-propelled four-wheeled road vehicle designed to carry passengers, including but not limited to sedans, coupes, station wagon, convertibles, pickups, vans, sport utility vehicles, Asian utility vehicles, but excepting motorcycles, trucks, delivery trucks, dump trucks, buses, road rollers, trolley cars, street sweepers, sprinklers, lawn mowers, and heavy equipment, such as but not limited to bulldozers, payloaders, graders, forklifts, amphibian trucks, cranes, and vehicles which run only on rails or tracks, and tractors, trailers, and traction engines of all kinds used exclusively for agricultural purposes. Trailers having any number of wheels when propelled or intended by attachment to a motor vehicle shall be classified as a separate motor vehicle with no power rating. So, there actually, Mr. President, is a very specific definition. No? And you might be wondering, why is this definition the one? To be frank, Mr. President, this particular bill does just refer to cars, no, brand new cars specifically, and more like consumer vehicles, not really vehicles used for business purposes or agricultural purposes.
And as you mentioned, a year of delivery to the consumer or up to 20,000 kilometers.
Yes.
No?
If I may add lang, Mr. President, because I also, when we got this version from Congress, I was also quite interested in this provision. And basically, upon our discussion with the COMSEC of Congress as well, is that there's really nothing stopping us from having another bill that covers the rest.
Okay.
It's just that the multi-sectoral group that developed this particular bill is really more on the auto industry.
That's my second question then, no? But with the auto industry, will there be a difference in according to use? Meaning, bumili ako ng high ace halimbawa, no? Or whatever brand of that category, no? And let's say it seats 10 people. And I use it as a service ng mga kapitbahay ko to hatid at sundo sa school, no? Pero I follow the specifications, no? Meaning they say that anything over 10 people or X pounds is overloading. Change oil at ganitong mileage, change tires at ganito, etc. I follow it, no? Pero it's a lemon. Just because I use it for business, will that disqualify me from...
No, Mr. President. There's nothing, we did not distinguish based on usage. We distinguish in types of classification of vehicles.
So walang excuse ang manufacturer na, hindi usually ang high ace pang private yan ginamit mo kasing panghatid sundo
Mr.
As long as you
President,
use it in accordance with the manual or the specifications nung...
Unless, Mr. President, it is specifically said in the warranty, no? Or in the, it will depend on the warranty of the particular vehicle,
Yes.
no? Because there is a non-conformity clause, Mr. President,
Yes.
no? Like, for example, I cannot modify the engine
Yes.
and then have that engine, if the engine is the problem. Now, I guess it will really depend on the specific warranty. I am not familiar, Mr. President, if specific vehicles have warranties that they cannot be used for such a purpose and therefore does have that clause. But if it's not in the clause, Mr. President, the bill itself does not distinguish usage.
I bring that up for two reasons, Mr. President, Mr. Sponsor. First, because multi-use gumamit ang Pilipino, di ba? In some richer countries like the US, family would probably have a family car para sa buong pamilya, then they'll have a sports car para sa pagpasok and everything, no? But tayo, minsan bumili ng kotse or ng sasakyan, multi-use yan So we don't want na, halimbawa, bumili nga ng van and then ginamit nga siya ng panghatid sundo or ginamit na business. And what I meant na sinunod pa rin specification, of course, kung nakalagay doon hanggang ganitong weight lang, in-overload mo. Di ba? Kaya parating sira. Kasalanan mo yon, hindi covered ng warranty. Pero kung mamaya sasabihin, hindi, nung binili mo, sabi mo, private. Kasi hindi naman to binili ng korporasyon or hindi naman business name ang bumili. Ang bumili nito, si Mr. Juan de la Cruz. Hindi bumili nito is Juan de la Cruz Bus Services. Then they'll make it hard for you to return or to get your money back, no? Secondly, I think there's less problems sa yung isa, palitan mo okay, di ba? Pero halimbawa yung mag-i-import ng specialty cars, no, or yung mag-i-import, let's say, ng 10 ganito lang klase ng pick-up na napakaganda. And then nung ginamit mo, nag-off-road ka, you went all around the country, and then every stop mo before 20,000 kilometers sira. Nung sinosoli mo, ayaw isoli yung pera kasi hindi naman siya manufacturer nun, binili din niya sa abroad, ayaw din niyang palitan dahil ilan units na lang, di ba? So I just wanted to make sure that it's on the record, di ba, na covered sila and hindi pwedeng, there are legitimate reasons to say that it's not a lemon which are found in the law, but they cannot invent reasons which are not found in the law or in the warranty to suddenly say na that's not considered a lemon.
Yeah. Mr. President, maybe just to answer that question as technically as possible, it will really depend on, first of all, it will really depend on what's in the warranty. Because it will be something that you need to watch out for,
Yes.
no, number one. Number two, Mr. President, is that if you're within the parameters of cannot be applied to your purchase, but if you bought it from a dealer here and they brought in the car, as is usually the case, then it's still covered by that, Mr. President. And maybe just to clarify on a third point, Mr. President, is that consumer rights also needs consumer responsibility, And ayun, they'll give you the warranty booklet, they'll tell you how many times you should come in. We also insisted that they now talk about the lemon law. Our consumers need to be responsible as well and read the fine print, know what's within the non-conformity clause, and really understand how or what behavior will exclude them from the benefits of the lemon law. As a last point, Mr. President, it's not the manufacturer who will decide to return the car or to give you another car. It's DTI.
Yeah.
Kasi we want to make sure, bakit iniisip ng mga tao, ba't naman ako bibigyan ng bagong kotse ng manufacturer? Of course, they might insist not to give me a new car, no? It's actually DTI, Mr. President, who will mediate and if need be the arbiter for any type of lemon law complaint, no?
By the way, Mr. President, you mentioned na dapat i-explain, and I'm very supportive of that. I remember one time, sa Singapore kasi marami sana sa sales doon, Pilipino. So one time, clothes, no? Tinawag ako ng Pilipino, nagbebenta siya doon. And then nakipagkwentuhan ako sa kanya. At sabi nga niya, medyo mas difficult ngayon, sir, dahil may bago kaming lemon law. Then he showed me an article, pero patago. Sabi niya, kasi ang boss namin, ayaw pakita sa labas yan. Kasi, di ba, like damit, we've heard sa West, di ba, na you can buy clothes in the American movies, di ba? Maraming mall sa US, you can buy, tapos kahit hindi lemon, no explanation, the next day or within a week ata or 2 weeks, 15 days, you can return it. So yun, hindi lemon law, parang consumer service lang yon, no? Ang problema, maraming umaabuso. Pupunta sa party, gagamitin yung bagong damit, the next day babalik, isosole yung But in Singapore, they implemented the lemon law, and as you said a while ago, there's no reason why, if there's a need, we can have another law for other items. But as of now, mas maraming complaints kasi sa sasakyan To the others, there seems to be a mechanism na isole, no? I looked at the legal provisions in the law, and it's quite straightforward. I just ask you these questions because that's where the lawyers make their money. Kumikita ang abogado na kahit na sigurado o madaling mapaliwanag yung provisions, pero ay sandali lang, hindi kasama sa batas yan, or the law did not contemplate that, no? So at least in our discussions, no, yung for example, no, malinaw dito yung sinabing brand new refers to vehicles constructed entirely from new parts covered by an express warranty at the time of purchase. Yung warranty, hindi lang papel yan, nalakay warranty, di ba? Nakasulat yan kahit fine print kung what the warranty covers and not. And of course, if it says there that this vehicle is not to be used for commercial purposes, ibig sabihin hindi kasama sa warranty yon. Pero kapag ka general use o walang nakalagay doon, it doesn't matter. In fact, your definition of consumer refers to any person, natural or juridical. Usually, juridical persons, not always, but usually, because there are foundations and non-stocks which are still not commercial in nature, no? But most of the juridical persons deal with business, So, pag binili mo at ginamit pangalan ng korporasyon, ano na dyan, di ba? Implied na yan na pwedeng iba-iba driver, pwedeng iba-iba yung gumagamit, etc. No? Having said all of that, Mr. President, ano mangyayari sa kotse na sinole na lemon? Isosoli ba to? Isisirain ba to? O pwede itong mabenta ulit?
Mr. President, it can be sold again, but there has to be an explicit warning. I'm not sure if warning is the right word, though, but an explicit message that it is a returned car because of the lemon law, Mr. President. Pre-owned, not only pre-owned, Mr. President, but also that it was returned because of the lemon law. So that's a specific provision of the law, Mr. President.
What if nabenta ulit yung sasakyan? So Mr. Cruz buys a car after fulfilling the provisions of the law, 4 na beses, so lemon, sabi niya, soli na lang, balik mo pera ko, sinole. No? The same car was sold to Mr. Santos with all the warranties and everything. No? But the same thing happened to him. But this time, hindi na siya brand new. Mm-hmm. So is it still covered by the lemon law?
I think it would be, Mr. President, but we can clarify that in the law if there needs clarification. No? But
yes.
Definitely...
Because technically, it's not a... I mean, if you're going to look at the law, brand new refers to vehicles constructed entirely from new parts covered by express warranty at the time that has never been sold, no? But or registered with the DOTC lang, kaya lang sinole. But sa batas, hindi, ang brand new under the law is hindi mo pa nabenta eh. Ito, pangalawang benta eh.
Actually, Mr. President, that's a good thing that you pointed out. No? We might need to clarify if that does then make it a second-hand car or it's still new. No? The term in technology, Mr. President, is refurbished. No?
Yes.
Where it's in a state in between brand new and second-hand.
Slightly used.
Well, in this case, Mr. President, we could probably clarify that, and we would welcome an amendment if there needs to be a clarification in the definition. But I'd also like to mention, Mr. President, and I failed to mention this earlier, if a manufacturer sells the car and does not disclose it, they will be fined 100,000 pesos. So they really need to disclose the fact.
Fined 100,000 and allow the return of the car, or just 100,000?
Let me read that again, Mr. President. It's just fined, Mr. President.
At the right time, if the author would and sponsor would allow, I think it would be fair that you get fined, but you pwede mo isole or palitan mo ng hindi lemon.
Yes, because there was a modicum of fraud there, Mr. President. No?
Kasi nung binili mo, akala mo brand new na hindi siya lemon. So, dalawang kasalanan sa'yo eh. Lemon na siya, hindi pa brand new kasi nabenta na sa iba bago sa'yo, di ba? So, mas masakit yung 100,000 plus sinoli mo. Kasi usually, di ba, when they sell a lemon, ibababa nila ng konti yung price. So kung 1.1 million yan, bilhin mo na to, 1 million na lang. Okay lang yun pag dinisclose mo. Sir, ba't mas mura? Ba't sa kanya 1.2? Kasi sinoli niya yan, lemon eh. Pero yung binentahan ka ng akala mo, nakatipid ka ng 200,000, yung pala lemon, tapos sira pa ulit-ulit. I think mas masakit and mas magiging deterrent at the right time an amendment to that effect, Mr. President.
We'd welcome that, Mr. President, as well as the maybe an added definition to cars which were previously returned if they're considered still brand new or second-hand. No?
Nakita ko po na or and yung definition ng brand new. No? Is this meant to cover nga na, for example, a dealer buys it in the US and then brings it to the Philippines and sells it. So it'll be considered brand new. Although, technically, yung dealer dito, binili, halimbawa, hindi siya exclusive distributor. Di ba, walang problema kung halimbawa, General Motors o Toyota sa Pilipinas, binili sa Toyota abroad. I mean, in our thinking, di ba, they sold among themselves, sila pa rin ang manufacturer or dealer. But for example, BAM's Amazing Cars, no? Which is in Tarlac, but it buys cars from all around the world. Yung binebenta nyo, assuming it was never sold to a consumer abroad and it was never used in a highway there and it was brought in, that will be considered brand new and covered by the...
Mr. President, you need to purchase the vehicle from a certified dealer here.
Yes.
So where they got the vehicle, it doesn't matter, no? Of course, there are no vehicles naman that are completely
Yes.
Filipino-made, no? Everything is taken from somewhere. So, Mr. President, si BAM's Amazing Cars needs to be a registered and certified dealer in the Philippines.
Yes.
So, meaning if I bought it online, for example, even if it's brand new, that wouldn't be covered by this law. We would have to have a branch here in the Philippines that's certified and registered here.
I was referring to the statement that has never been sold, pero nakalagay naman or registered with the DOTC or an appropriate agency and has never been operated in a highway. So, meaning, what if it was never operated in a highway, but technically kasi binili mo na rin, for example, BAM's Amazing Cars in Tarlac bought it from Alan's Amazing Car in California, but Alan, California bought it actually from the producers of Ferrari in Italy, no? But never used by any consumer, no?
Yes.
I'm saying the definition covers
It would cover that,
kasi
Mr.
brand
President.
new pa rin yun, no?
But
Meaning the buying and selling among the sellers or dealers are not contemplated by the law as a user or consumer.
No, Mr. President.
That will make it a second-hand car.
No, because it's really when a consumer uses the car, when it becomes, when ownership and usage starts to take place. No? And in that case, Mr. President, the Tarlac-based BAM's Amazing Cars, if I
Are
got
still selling new cars.
are still selling new cars and would be responsible for returning your vehicle, not the one in the US or the one in Italy. It would be the one that you dealt with, which is a certified dealer in our shores, Mr. President.
Just going back, Mr. President, to our general discussion of warranties and why vehicles are covered by the Lemon Law. Allow me to read Article 1547, 1561, 1566 of the Civil Code and just put it into the record. No? In a contract of sale, unless a contrary intention appears, there is an implied warranty on the part of the seller that he has the right to sell the thing at the time when the ownership is to pass, and that the buyer shall from the time have and enjoy the legal and peaceful possession of the thing. Number 2, an implied warranty that thing shall be free from any hidden faults or defects or any charge or encumbrance not declared or known to the buyer. This article shall not, however, be held to render liable a sheriff, auctioneer, mortgagee, pledgee, or other person professing to sell by virtue of authority or fact of law for the sale of a thing in which a third person has a legal or equitable interest. Meaning, Mr. President, even without the Lemon Law, no? Pag bumili ka ng kahit anong bagay, kahit anong gamit, no? Including sasakyan, kahit sasakyan, meron po siyang implied warranty against hidden defects, no? Kaya tayo nag-Lemon Law kung ako'y tama, kasi mas mahirap patunayan under this article pag sasakyan versus a smaller item. For example, no, I buy this ball pen from one of the bigger bookstores, no. Napaka-obvious naman kung hindi ko magamit ang ball pen, di ba? Kapag ka sinoli ko to at sulat ako ng sulat and ayaw sumulat, so sabihin na, sir, baka yung tinta. Pag pinalitan pa rin yung tinta at ayaw pa rin sumulat dahil mali ang pagkagawa ng ballpen, ang daling sabihin, hidden defect yan. Hindi ko nabaksak yan, hindi nasira, palitan nyo. No? Pero yung sa kotse kasi, di ba yun yung experience ng mga sa Lemon Law eh. Sasabihin mo una, ayaw mag-start. Ay sir, maluwag lang kasi yung sa baterya. Then, 2-3 days sa kasa bago ayusin. Then ibabalik mo na naman, ba't mainit yung aircon? Hindi, walang kalalaman sa electrical yun, sir. Kulang lang sa freon, hindi nilagyan. But later on, you realize na may hidden defect, na lemon talaga siya, hindi isolated na mga sira na madaling ayusin. So, although technically, Article 1547 already covers the warranty for hidden defects, it's easier for the consumer and even for the judges and enforceability to be very clear ano ba yung Lemon Law. In fact, that's why you defined na 4 na beses. No? Kasi yung ibang manufacturers sabihin, boss, kahit na obvious na sirang-sira, 3 beses mo pa lang naman sinole or 5, 6, then there'll always be a question on the judge mind. What is a lemon? What is not a lemon? What is implied warranty? No? And by the way, Senator, no, Mr. President, I had friends and relatives who had experience with that with houses. No, so sasabihin kaya bumabaha, may mali lang sa drainage, gigibain, ayusin, no? Later on, tag-ulan, babahin yung buong floor, gigibain, may mali pala, etc. And they felt really helpless. Kasi it's so inconvenient, paulit-ulit and everything. Tatakbo ka ng HULRB or HUDCC, kakausapin mo yung developer and everything. In the meantime, hawak niya pera, komportable yung developer, etc. The same thing with cars, di ba? Hindi ka nakakapasok sa trabaho or na-late ka dahil sira, mag-a-absent ka para paayos, gastos ka, when you paid for something that's brand new and had a guarantee against hidden defects, pero hindi nangyari. So I just wanted to put in the record that other smaller items, there is consumer right, there's a Consumer Act, there is the Civil Code. The next provision is that the vendor shall be responsible for warranty against hidden defects which the thing sold may have. Should they render it unfit for the use of which it was intended, or should they diminish its fitness for use to such an extent that had the vendor been aware of, he would not have acquired it or would have given a lower price for it. But the said vendor shall not be answerable for patent defects or those which may be visible or those which are not visible if the vendor is an expert who, by reason of his trade or profession, should have known. So I guess these are the provisions, and that the last provision, that was 1561. 1566 says, the vendor is responsible to the vendee for any hidden faults or defects, if the thing sold, even though he may not be aware thereof. This provision shall not apply if the contrary has been stipulated, and the vendor was not aware of the hidden faults or defects of the thing sold. No? So, Mr. President, ang sinasabi po dito sa provisions na to, pag may binenta ako, ballpen, kahit hindi ko alam na may hidden defect, obligasyon ko pa rin na palitan or isoli yung pera. I guess the arbitration that's now taking place at yung kasuhan, etong mga provisions ang ginagamit as well as other general provisions in the Consumer Act. No? But the legislature should be proactive in responding to a certain need. In this case, no, 145 cases is no joke. That's 145 lives, 145 people who are hassled, if it's true, no, lemon. Plus the mentality, no, na everyone buying a car, nagdadasal na sana hindi lemon makuha ko, hassle. But with the lemon law, they will have the peace of heart and mind that bumili ako, may problema, maayos, papalitan yan o isosoli yung pera ko.
Definitely, Mr. President. And again, no, the lemon law further strengthens those laws found in the Consumer Act, and if I'm not mistaken, the Civil Code, because it extends the coverage of our vehicles. So thank you, Mr. President, for those comments, and definitely your amendment or your upcoming amendment will be most welcome as well.
Mr. President, I was intrigued, no, by the proposal of the gentleman or from the sponsor that in fact it's not enough to have a warranty, it's not enough to have a booklet, yung sa change oil and everything, and a lot of drivers and Filipinos and owners even neglect that, no, or pwede yung bahala na, di ba? But explaining it or having a sign telling the people their rights are effective. So let me just point out that there are three things that are important when we deal with rights. Number one, that there's a demandable right under the law. Kasi minsan under the moral law, or alam natin na tama in general, no? Pero if you cannot point to a law that's saying it is demandable, walang enforcement. Meaning you cannot go to court or hindi ka pwede magsumbong sa asosasyon. So for example, if you had a store and the store guaranteed, lahat ng gamit dito, no questions asked, pwede mo isole anytime within 15 days. No? That's something they give the consumer as a demandable right. No? Or the pizza parlor that says that if I don't deliver in 30 minutes, don't pay me. No? So those aren't found in the law. But the store itself takes upon itself to put that policy to attract customers. Then you can demand it from them. No? So after demandable right, what's important is that they know that they have that right. Because even if there is a lemon law, kung hindi naman alam ng mga bumibili ng kotse at hindi rin sasabihin sa kanila ng dealers, di ba? Hassle din sa kanila, baliwala din. It doesn't strengthen the confidence in the industry and in the to the consumers, no? And then lastly, the enforcement. So kahit may demandable right ka, kahit alam, kung ang tingin nila, absent ka pa sa trabaho para magreklamo. Pag nagreklamo ka, hahaseling ka pa ng pulis na para bang ikaw gumawa ng krimen. And then afterwards, absent ka pa pumunta sa piskal. And then maghi-hearing na every month may one hearing, attend ka, and then uwi ka. Yung binili ko naman 1,000 lang bawat absent ko mawawala sa akin 600. Doon pa lang sa papuntang korte, mas malaki na nawala sa akin. So that's why even in some malls, no, kapag not the bigger malls now, but dati sa mga Tiangge at saka sa mga lugar na medyo open, no, may mga fairs, pag may nahuling nagsha-shoplift, pag nakuha nung tao yung cellphone o yung nanakaw sa kanya, pitaka, hindi na nagsusumbong sa pulis. Dahil mas hassle pa Sabi niya, laman ng pitaka ko, mas yung ID at yun ang kailangan ko Pero pera ko doon, 200 lang Pero yung gagawin mo sa akin, na 3 oras ako fill up ng complaint. Tapos pag final ng korte, tatawagin mo pa ang witness. Tatakutin pa ako ng pamilya nung hold-upper, etc. No? So, meaning, Mr. President, I'm also concerned about the enforcement of this, and I'm hoping, and usually, hindi na sa batas yan. Usually, yung batas, pag binasa mo, very clear yung rights, but how do they implement? For example, I wonder right now, to be fair, hindi ko po alam pero I wonder if I call DTI right now, not as Senator Alan, but as a consumer Alan Cayetano, and I say na, alam mo, 3 beses na ako niloko nung ganitong tindahan. Sinabi, brand new yung TV. Every time I open it, sira, hindi ganyan, etc. Or nung binuksan ko, pinalitan yung parts. I wonder how fast they will go to that store, etc. That's why some people hindi na nagko-complain sa batas. Social media na lang. O kaya magrarally, pupunta doon sa harap ng tindahan, may sign na mangloloko to para aregluhin ng may-ari na maapektuhan negosyo. But I'd like to see a law that reflects all 3 of this, no? Na number 1, which is clearly in the Lemon Law, alam na nung owner na may karapatan. Number 2, I agree with your idea, no, that the dealer should explain it. Na, sir, by the way, or give a copy, no, sir, this is the Lemon Law, this is your rights, you can ganyan. In fact, that's even good for the sellers, di ba? That it will show na confident sila sa produkto nila and kung may mali, no. But the last one is what I'm concerned about na, and that's my last question, no. Just in case, no, that there's still a dispute between the buyer who says walang duda lemon to, and then the seller, no, or who says na hindi ko papalitan yan dahil hindi lemon yan, no. What will be the process?
Yeah, Mr. President, I have been asking exactly the same questions. In fact, maybe to answer first your question, if you had called DTI, they have a call center actually for consumer complaints. And in our last few hearings we had with Undersecretary Diwagiba, who's in charge of the Consumer Protection Group of DTI, their claim is that they're able to answer calls at or resolve cases at 83%. So at 83%, they're able to resolve the case, if I'm not mistaken, within a week or within 7 working days.
By the way, Mr. President, that's very comforting to hear.
I know.
It's very comforting.
I know. Which is why, Mr. President, we've also been doing some ghost calling, no, in our office just to check.
And maybe, Mr. President, that's the 17% na hindi nasosolve, yung ghost.
No, we call just to check how fast they can respond to the cases,
well, Mr. President, that's a good, maybe we can work with some stores to actually test, no?
Actually, Mr. President, no, I think the solution to your answer is really, again, no, in most cases in our society, a partnership between the private sector and government. Because the best really is if your store or if your mall has a good policy in terms of consumer protection. And some malls actually have a DTI desk. And we've gone around with DTI to check on these consumer protection desks that if, for example, the store does not want to cater to you, you can go to the DTI protection desk and ask them to help you. So, Mr. President, we'll definitely, we can work on that also, no? But I'm happy to say that there are some basics already in place. Now, regarding the implementation of this Lemon Law, it's really DTI, Mr. President, that has taken the cudgels for this law, both on the mediation and arbitration side. No? Mediation is basically, they will try to settle between the dealer and, of course, the buyer on how to resolve this case. Now, if an amicable settlement or an agreement cannot be reached, then they go into arbitration, and then they will decide if indeed the dealer needs to replace or if the complaint was, Mr. President. Now, I'm happy to note also that this law was made with the auto industry associations on board. So they are completely on board that they will follow the arbitration or mediation proceedings that DTI will undertake. So at least, Mr. President, on that end, I'm quite hopeful that these cases will be resolved.
And that's the best way to do things, to include the industry. Of course, there'll be some haggling, there'll be some provisions that they would like or not like, but in the end, when the law is done with the industry involved, no, it's more reflective of reality and what can and cannot be done. No? But for, as a last question and then one suggestion, Mr. President, do you have any local or international statistics when it comes to vehicle? How many percent a year or every 5 years or 3 years are lemons and are considered lemons? No? So is it 1 out of 100,000, 1 out of a million?
Well, the 2013 figures, Mr. President, is about assuming that all those cases are lemons.
Yes.
Because these are just the cases, no?
Yes.
So that's 213 out of...
145 out, so mga 0.1%.
Look at my notes here. That's 145 out of 213,000. So that's basically... maybe less than 0.5%, if I'm not mistaken.
Point zero, no? Kasi assuming it's 200 cars out of 200,000, 20,000 is 10%, 2,000 is 1%, 200
Actually, it's smaller, Mr. President.
200 is 0.01%.
It's actually
no?
sorry.
0.0 something percent.
Forgive my mathematical skills, Mr. President. Let me just compute this correctly.
Yes. My mathematical skills are just as good as yours, so forgive mine also.
0.07%, roughly, Mr. President.
0.07%.
Yes.
So, just as a suggestion, maybe the committee would like to study that as an additional penalty, no, or to give the law real teeth. If a certain percentage of car from a certain dealer turns out to be lemon, they should lose their license or it should be suspended for X time. No? So if it's zero, for example, if it's 0.07, no, they shouldn't be afraid if we say, let's say,
10%.
if 2% or 3% of the cars you sell in a certain year turns out to be lemons. Because kung ganun karami, no, let's say 3%, that's 3 out of 100. Obviously, there's something
wrong.
There's something wrong, di ba? About it. Etong 0.07, that's not even 1 out of 100. No? So, but I'm fond also of putting realistic numbers there, but something that would really force, no, the manufacturers and the retailers and the dealers to have their own quality control, no? Just to ensure that, of course, it's inherent from them to have quality control because they won't be able to sell in a real competitive environment, diba? If they don't have a great product. But then, but then cars, although there's competition, there are some people who just simply love Toyotas or simply love Hondas or simply love Fords, diba? And which dealer, parang napaka naman kung the same brand, pero pag bumili ka ng X car sa Alabang, 3% doon, lemons. Pag bumili ka ng X car sa same
defects
ang lemon nila, no? I'm more passionate rather than that provision of really, having the legal protection in the people, in the law. So people can know that it's not a dead letter law, meaning nandun lang yung right pero hindi ko ma-enforce. And then number 2, really having a deterrent, no? From violating these rights because it's just like labor, eh. Lamang na lamang yung malalaking korporasyon laban sa mga malilit na manggagawa because they have all the resources. So in this case, isang hamak na buyer ka. Great in our committee and our chairman that he'll find the right balance.
Listening to the very interesting area, can you please define lemon?
Mr. President,
It doesn't seem to be in the committee report. So while we talk about lemon,
well, Mr. President, the term lemon, I think, is really more of the vernacular, no, or the slang term for it, no. But it actually refers to cars which have a defect that cannot be fixed after 4 separate repair attempts. by the same manufacturer, distributor of cars which are brought for repair for the same defect 4 times, and within the given period, which is 1 year or 20,000 kilometers, it's not able, the dealers are not able to fix it, no?
All
So
right.
then,
So you're referring to Section 5.
yes, Mr. President.
Then may I suggest in the period of committee amendments, you just include in Section 3, definition of terms, the word lemon, because the short title is "This Act shall be known as the Philippine Lemon Law."
Okay.
So I was looking for the lemon. Number 2, Mr. President, what about cars that have been recalled? Would that be counted? I mean, recently 200,000 vehicles in the United States was recalled by General Motors, and then sometimes 500,000 cars are recalled. Would that count among the 4?
Mr. President, to be very honest, that's not within the scope of this law, no? The cars which are recalled. Usually, Mr. President, or at least for this case, it's the buyer who does go back to the dealer and say that there's a problem. So recalled cars, Mr. President, unfortunately, are not covered by the lemon law.
All right, so the count of up to 4 is outside any recall made by the manufacturer or the dealer.
Currently, Mr. President, in this version of the law, it's not counted.
All right. In the penalty section, you speak of a perpetual ban. Are we aware of how much, say, a 1-month suspension would cost the dealer and the manufacturer, a 2-month suspension, a 3-month suspension, a perpetual ban is rather.
Mr. President, that was the suggestion of the majority floor leader. We actually don't have any provision on perpetual ban. So he had suggested that for those who are recidivists in terms of the lemon law, that we put a perpetual ban in the law, Mr. President.
Yes, but that would send the wrong signal. That would be extremely unfriendly to investors, and setting up a dealership in this country is
Expensive.
pretty expensive. We don't want, I think, to overreact. We don't want to cut off the right hand because the fellow stole something. This is not Sharia territory. However, what I was suggesting is let's find out how much it's going to cost them, because those are already preventive measurements. You know, I mean, if I sell, say, if I were Toyota and I were selling 1,000 units a month, and that's 1 billion pesos a month. If you suspend me only for 1 week, I'm going to start crying. Because that means I continue paying the rent, continue paying the overhead, I continue paying the mechanics. I can't lay them off. So, kung 1 week, masakit yun.
Definitely, Mr. President. That's, of course, again, Mr. President, if I may clarify, that was a suggestion of the majority floor leader. That's not in the current
Not yet
version
in
of
the
law.
current version. All right.
Yes. And in fact, Mr. President, I'm not even sure if he will write or propose an amendment to that effect. No? But I think the spirit of what the majority floor leader wanted to say is that if someone consistently is selling lemons, that there should be some type of penalty against them. That's not within the coverage of the current bill as is, Mr. President.
And how would you define the word consistent? Would 5 cars be consistent? Would 10 cars?
Mr. President, again, no, this is again coming from the majority floor leader, no. What he basically used was the 2013 numbers is that 0.07% are actually possibly lemons, because these are the number of cases currently with DTI, 0.07%. So what he had mentioned was that if you breach 5% or 3% or even higher, much higher than the national average of possible lemons, then some level of penalty should be met against you. Of course, Mr. President, this is a suggestion of the majority floor leader, which is not yet in this
The
version.
0.07% or whatever that number is, that's brand new cars.
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. Lastly, Mr. President, I also worry, concerned about the right of the victim to effectuate efficient justice fast. Now, there are with the internet nowadays. Would you feel that a shame campaign would be preventive in nature of as to future transgressions?
Well,
there was let me tell you an experience I had when I was living abroad in Los Angeles. This friend of mine had bought a minivan, and he had brought it back I don't know how many times to the dealer. He was so fed up. He parked it on the street. He could afford it. So he parked it on the street in front of his office, had a big sign on it that says, "This is a lemon. Toyota is so-and-so." And pretty soon Toyota was willing to pay him to just take it off the streets, but he refused. So it stayed on the streets for a couple of months. And of course, it was carried on television, it was carried on the news. And sometimes these things could be more effective than even suspending
yes, Mr. President.
a dealer or a manufacturer.
Yes, Mr. President. No, in fact, that's more and more common these days with social media. But maybe just to clarify, the bill wasn't really meant to penalize manufacturers who have lemons, because I think, Mr. President, if you're a decent manufacturer, you wouldn't want to sell cars which are of a substandard nature, because it's bad for your business. The dealers, it's a headache for the dealers if their cars are substandard, because they'll have to repair it. It's within the coverage period. So I think, Mr. President, we also have to clarify that sometimes you get a very complex machine and it's not up to standard, and sometimes it's not the fault of the dealer or even of the consumer, for example. I think what this law says, Mr. President, and the fact that this was created with the auto industry, is that people are willing to recognize that if your car really has a problem, it's your right to return it, have it replaced, or have it refunded within the process. So, Mr. President, having the penalty part might actually change the tenor of the bill. But of course, if more of us would want to see that in, then we might consider it, no? But to be very frank, the tenor of this bill is really more for consumer rights and to lay down the proper process for people to return their lemon cars.
I agree with you, Mr. President. This protects the 1 in 1 million customer from being treated unfairly. And I know, because I've had friends who used to cry out for the passage of a lemon law even 15 years ago. And I think some of us know that. And lemons are lemons. I mean, there are lemons in the Congress, in the Senate, in the executive. These are accidents. They're not deliberate, but sometimes I wonder, you know. In any case, we are protecting the 1 in 100 or the 1 in 1,000 or the 1 in 10,000, because I know what he has to go through. It's happened to me also. And we just wanted to make sure that the system will not allow him to be interminably delayed in obtaining justice, because as you were early discussing, talagang yung mga mahuhusay dyan, you're gonna be without a car for 6 months, 1 year, because he's fighting you in court. So I don't have the answers to that, but I hope we will be able to find something that we can insert into the bill, into the law, that will speed up the process.
Mr. President, on that note, actually the mediation process has to, well, it says here in the bill, no, in section 8, number 5, letter A, number 5, that all disputes that were submitted for mediation must be settled within 10 working days from the date of filing of the complaint with DTI. So DTI is bound by this provision that they have to answer, or they have to finish the mediation proceedings within 10 days. If after 10 days they cannot find an amicable settlement, they have to go into arbitration within 20 working days. So actually, Mr. President, from the time that an actual complaint is filed, that's 30 working days. Hopefully that it will only be 30 working days until the DTI comes up with a judgment, and that then the dealer either replaces the car or gives a refund, or they dismiss it, and DTI judges the complaint invalid.
All right, but the law says shall enter into arbitration. Arbitration can take time. Is there a sentence here which says arbitration will only take 30 days?
Well, it says, Mr. President, that okay, maybe there's a need to clarify, Mr. President, because the within 20 working days here actually refers to the period of the arbitration process. No? But I see it now that it's not clear. No? It may be misinterpreted as starting within 20 days after the mediation has stopped. No? Maybe we can clarify this further, Mr. President. But in the hearing, the intention here was to finish all the proceedings within 20 working days.
All right, and there's also the phrase may voluntarily enter into arbitration proceedings. Consider exchanging that for the word shall. The parties shall enter into arbitration if they're unable to decide during the mediation.
Yes, Mr. President. We'll take note of that, Mr. President, and tackle that during the period of amendments.
Lastly, Mr. President, it's never a one side wins all situation. Normally, the customer could be at fault.
Yes.
And so that must be at least worded somewhere that there might be relative blame. He might have gotten into an accident, and then after that, the car goes into the shop 4, 5, or 6 times.
Mr. President, if I may, let me read the last part of Section 8, which talks about that case. In case a non-conformity of the vehicle is not found by the DTI, it shall rule in favor of the manufacturer, distributor, authorized dealer, or retailer, and direct the consumer to reimburse the manufacturer, distributor, authorized dealer, or retailer the costs incurred by the latter in validating the consumer's complaints. So, if the complaint is really unwarranted, Mr. President, or in Tagalog, dinadaya lang, may nangyari, tapos pinapasa na, kunyari, defect siya, and DTI is able to rule that it wasn't a valid complaint, or there was some type of non-conformity that the buyer did, like they modified everything, then they're complaining about what they modified, then they may rule in favor of the manufacturer and charge the complainant for the time spent by the manufacturer, Mr. President. So it does have cases for both, because we also have to have that case, Mr. President, where it's not always the dealer who's at fault. It could actually be the consumer who's also at fault.
So going back to Section 5, which provides that at least 4 separate repair attempts by the same manufacturer, distributor, authorized dealer, or retailer for the same complaint. Does retailer, dealer, distributor, manufacturer refer to the person who sold the car?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. So let's say that he took the car to a Toyota dealer, let's say to a Toyota, and he brings it to a non-Toyota dealer thinking he'll get a cheaper deal, which is true. Many of us do that. When you go to the casa, mas patas yung quotation sa'yo for whatever, replacement, repair, etc. But let's say he's been to two non-casa shops, and then he finally goes back to the casa because the non-casa couldn't fix it. Would the 2 visits to the non-casa be counted?
No, Mr. President. In fact, it will invalidate the lemon law, because
Okay.
It's an authorized.
So it's like a warranty.
dealer. Yes, and in fairness, Mr. President, the 20,000 kilometers usually for brand new vehicles, they are covered fully, no, in that warranty. So it's not as if you're stopping them from going to other other casas or other talleres, Mr. President. But this particular case, the 4 attempts has to be with the dealer because they also don't want to possibly fix something that was messed up by another dealer, Mr. President. So, no, it would not count, and in fact, it would invalidate the benefits of the lemon law.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. I thank the gracious and sponsor.
The Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Soto, is recognized.
Thank you. Will the distinguished gentleman yield to just 1 or 2 questions?
Of course, Mr. President.
Just to satisfy my curiosity, Mr. President. Thank you. I heard earlier that 4 times going back to the manufacturer would be the number that you're looking at. Why 4? What is the rationale for 4? Why not 3?
Actually, Mr. President, that's the same question I posed when during the committee hearing. But as I take it, Mr. President, this has been in process for a long time, and 4 was actually what the multi-sectoral group already agreed on, no? And this includes the car manufacturers, the consumer rights groups, all of the different individuals and groups involved in the previous Congress's hearings for this bill, Mr. President. In other countries, it's actually 3, no? In other countries, it's also 4. But when we heard this in one of our in the hearing, we decided not to mess already with that number because that actually took a lot of time before all parties could agree on 4 times, Mr. President. So I don't think it's a technical reason. It's probably a number that they agreed on, Mr. President, that would satisfy both the consumer rights groups and the auto manufacturers.
Is the committee satisfied with 4?
Yes, Mr. President.
You're not looking at the possibility of, when you make it 3, you're making sure that the distributors and the manufacturers make sure that they don't produce lemons.
Well, Mr. President,
Pag 4 parang
marami na, Mr. President.
Medyo may elbow room pa eh.
Okay, well, Mr. President, I'm sure if we can informally ask our colleagues and there's a push for 3, we can probably tackle that in the period of amendments. But as committee chair, Mr. President, we decided to honor the past work that the committee has done, both in Congress and the Senate, and the decision to come up or to push for 4 was one that came after a long process, Mr. President, where both the manufacturers and the consumer right groups were able to agree on.
Okay, perhaps we can try and get the consensus of the other members during the period of amendment. Now, on the 20,000 kilometers, why 20? Why not 10? 1 year and 10,000 kilometers. The average usage of a car is 10,000 kilometers in 1 year, unless you're using it as a service.
Yes, actually, Mr. President, again, the 12 months, 20,000 kilometers, 4 times, that was a subject of a lot of debate, Mr. President, for the previous Congresses. And again, this is what years of consensus building has actually reached, no? So when it came to the committee already, Mr. President, we opted to just honor all of that work that the committees had done, both in Congress and the Senate. But again, Mr. President, if there's a consensus to change these specific numbers and make it more pro-consumer, Mr. President, then we could probably discuss that. But just to mention, Mr. President, in the U.S., it's 18,000 kilometers. So it's quite close to our 20,000 kilometers, Mr. President. I think they made it 20,000 because of our road conditions. So we're not that far.
We should make it lower because of our road conditions.
Oh, that's a good
it's
point, Mr.
18,000
President.
in the United States, but it's all freeways most of the time. It's very seldom that you encounter
lubak,
a pothole. Oh.
Okay, Mr. President.
While on the other hand, here, There are potholes everywhere.
Actually, Mr. President, no, you're much more of a car expert than I am, not to be very frank. But again, as committee chair, we honored the previous work of the committees who had come before us, especially the committee secretaries in trade, no, both in the Congress and the Senate.
What was their reason? I am not. You can convince me. I can easily be convinced. I'm not too familiar with that. Whether if it's 10,000 or 20,000, I usually sell my car before it gets to 10,000 anyway. So I'm not familiar with that. I'm just getting your rationale.
Mr. President, no, I think we have to look at the history of where it started, where the number started, and where it eventually ended up. No, and we can provide that, Mr. President, after this session. But if I'm not mistaken, Mr. President, this was a number, of course, that satisfied again both the consumer rights groups and the auto manufacturers. So, of course, Mr. President,
they did not specify why. It satisfies them. Why?
As far as I know, Mr. President, this was a number that was basically a consensus already. But I can actually check the records on the why 20,000, why 4 times, and why 12 months.
Yes, that's all. But we were very supportive of your measure, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. We'll provide that, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, since no other senator signified their intention to ask questions or to interpolate, I move that we close the period of interpolation.
Any objection? Hearing none. The period for interpolation on Senate Bill number 2211 under Committee Report number 25 is terminated.
To give time to the committee and to the sponsor to come up with the committee amendments, I move that we suspend the consideration of Senate Bill number 2211 under Committee Report number 25.
Consideration of measure is suspended.
Sir President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2226 under Committee Report number 29. This is the Student Athletes Protection Act of 2014.
Any objection? Hearing none. Resumption of consideration of Senate Bill 2226 under Committee Report 29 is in order.
Mr. President, may I ask for a minute suspension?
1 minute suspension. Sige.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number... the parliamentary status, Mr. President, is that we have resumed consideration of Senate Bill 226 under Committee Report number 29. The sponsors have delivered her sponsorship speech, and now we are opening the period of interpellation and debate, Mr. President.
Period for interpellation and debate is in order.
Recognize Senator Pia Cayetano, Mr. President.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Mr. President, no senator signified their intention to clarify or to interpellate the sponsor. I move that we close the period of interpellation and debate.
Period for interpellation on Senate Bill 2226 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period for committee amendments.
The period for committee amendment is hereby in order, and incidentally, the chair notices that the majority leader signed with the annotation "will interpellate."
Given that the sponsor is a sister athlete, she has explained to me in private, and I'm satisfied with the
Good explanation.
as a better athlete and one who has played in the UAP while I simply watch the UAP. I understand now the points, Mr. President, and am
But
satisfied.
your sister athlete understands better.
Yes, Mr. President,
Thank
because she actually is not only an athlete, but she actually played in the UAP and was a member of the Philippine team.
All right.
While I actually watched the Philippine team
All right.
and
Let us now
watched the
proceed.
UAP.
Let us now proceed with passing this bill.
May I ask the sponsor if there are any committee amendments, Mr. President?
Mr. President, we would like to ask for a day to review it once more, and most likely we'll be presenting a few committee amendments tomorrow.
Given that, Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 226 under Committee Report number 29.
Senate Bill number 2226 is the consideration of Senate Bill 2226 is hereby terminated, with the understanding that this will be called again tomorrow for the committee to present any amendments that it may deem necessary.
And as a gentle reminder to our colleagues, Mr. President, if they have any individual amendments, it can be presented tomorrow. And a more gentle reminder to the senator athlete, it is the tradition among athletes that when there is a victory, the coach or the one with the victory treats the rest of the team. So she's free to treat us once this passes into law, Mr. President.
I join the chair joins the majority leader. Anyway, so the consideration of measure is suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesday, May 28, 2014.
Session is adjourned until 28th of May 2014, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.